Hi, everybody. Welcome to the New Year's edition of Books and Brews. We are here to welcome you into the reading new year of 2022. A little bit different setup today. We are Zooming with each other. So we have got some reviews of our favorite books from 2021, books that maybe we wanted to read in 2021 but didn't get a chance to. And then we have a couple of books from staff members that they recommended that they read in 2021 that they really enjoyed. So Sammy's going to go ahead and get us started. And why don't you talk about, Sammy, the book that you got recommended from a staff member? Why don't we start with our staff member recommendations?
Yeah, and before I get started too, this is Books and Brews, so we can't forget our brew.
I forgot our brew. You're right.
We got this amazing hot chocolate for a very snowy day outside. This hot chocolate is from Cannon Coffee right here on Potomac Street, and it is absolutely amazing. I definitely recommend it for these cold days to come.
It is really good.
I love it. So yes, my first read of this year, or not this year anymore, last year, my first read of last year was a book that was recommended to me by one of our previous staff, and that is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. Also goes by Shannon, oh gosh, what's her last name? Oh, it's gonna kill me. I'll come back to it. Because she has some pseudonyms that she writes by. This is one of her pseudonyms. But this book is amazing. It is kind of like a mermaid horror sci-fi at the same time. I adored it. It was a great way to start out my year last year. So hopefully I start my year this year just as well. It was a great, really believable mermaid horror, which is, I think, why I loved it so much. So what about you? What was one of your earliest books last year that started you out super strong?
Yeah, so I read a YA novel, one of the first books I read, called Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. You can kind of see it there. I really enjoyed it a lot. I don't read a ton of YA. I read some, but not a lot. But I kind of just picked it up off the shelf and read it. And it's been a long time since I've done something like that. So I thought it was really great. It's a really action-packed story. It moves really quickly, and there's a lot of intricate plot points, which are really interesting for a YA novel. It was really complex, which I really liked. And it's incredibly whimsical and kind of fantasy. I think they call it like a high fantasy, kind of like a regional type thing. There is a lot of I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. There's magic elements, there's elements where people get turned into things, there's all sorts of different elements that happen. But I really enjoyed it. I don't read a lot of like straight fantasy like that, so I really enjoyed it a lot, and I highly recommend it. Very quick read too, so it was very fun.
Yeah, I read a really good YA novel this year too. So that helps me segue into the next one. It was called The Grace Year by Kim Liggett. I might have talked about this one previously. I can't remember, but hopefully I haven't. This is a really cool, like, dystopian novel where basically when the girls turn 16, the people in their community believe that they come into this magic that takes over the men and can, like, either kill them or force them to do things they don't want to do. So they believe these 16-year-old girls are dangerous. So they send them out into the wilderness for their 16th year to basically let whatever happens happen, for them to dispel this horrible evil magic. And then they can come back when they're 17 and be nice, simple, like, innocent wives, basically, where they'll get married to men in the community and be nice, simple wives. But that it chronicles that year. It's really interesting because you follow all these just really amazing girls throughout this kind of terrifying year in the wilderness, and it was really good. I really recommend it.
That's great. good, strong YA showing on Books and Brews, which is great.
Yeah.
So next, I'm actually going to do one of our staff members' favorite books of 2021. So they read this in 2021. This is from Shannon, and she wrote this for us. So I'll read what she wrote. The thing I always forget about Wally Lamb's writing is how utterly brilliant he is at depicting characters who are broken in such agonizingly realistic ways. So the book is We Are Water by Wally Lamb. And she calls it a sweeping book about deeply flawed people who and the damage that we can do to one another, and how we can kind of get through these types of things. About family, it explores how monsters are made through the course of human beings living their lives while facing up to different challenges. She calls it beautiful and disturbing, and also completely absorbing.
Oh,
So
wow.
if that does not give you a very good, overview of how you're going to feel when you're reading the book, there it is. Again, that one is We Are Water by Wally Lamb.
Okay. If we want to go for something a little lighter than beautiful and disturbing, we have another staff recommendation. This one is from Michaela. This is a YA novel, another YA novel, and this is called The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale. So this is a retelling of a fairy tale. So it's not a modern fairy tale, but it's just another retelling. And it is about a princess. She is betrothed to a prince in another land, but she is betrayed by her handmaiden, her lady in waiting. And basically it all goes wrong. All these people are out to get her, and she ends up the goose girl in another land. And a cool aspect of this is she also has the ability to communicate with the geese, which is really, so you've got a fantasy aspect to this as well. Michaela says she really loves this book because we've got like some really strong female characters. It's very fantastical. So we have a great recommendation from Michaela for this one. So check this one out too.
That's great. Okay, so time has come. My favorite book, 2021, is in fact what a lot of people's favorite book was as well, I would guess. It won some awards last year. It came out in 2020, late 2020. Kind of just blew up at the beginning of last year, and that is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I absolutely loved it. I listened to it and then I read it again because I liked it so much. For a long time, it was hard to get your hands on, but now you can see we do have copies available. So if you haven't had a chance to read it yet, I definitely recommend it. They call it science fiction. Sure. There's some science fiction-y elements, but a lot of it is just engaging and can relate back to your real life. It does have those mystical elements in it, but it can relate back to real life a lot. And it kind of is time travel-y. I don't know. I don't really want to give too much away about it because I like it so much. And I didn't know much going into it. So I don't want to say even too much about what it's about. I want people to kind of just read it not knowing a lot, because me going in, reading it, not knowing too much about it, I actually think was helpful to understanding it. If you know anything about Matt Haig, he writes a lot about mental illness and people dealing with that, and depression, anxiety, and all these feelings that a lot of people are feeling right now. And so it's a very timely book for last year, and very successful, very popular one. So I definitely encourage everybody to read it if you haven't already. I know lots of people already have.
It's definitely been on my to be read list for probably since you read it and have been ranting and raving about it.
I've been talking about it for a while. I went on a Matt Haig deep hole of reading pretty much everything that he had written in the past couple of years. So I also read The Comfort Book by Matt Haig, which came out last year in 2021, which is also one of my highlights as well. So definitely a lot of good stuff coming from Matt Haig recently.
For sure. And then to close out my favorite reads of 2021, I definitely can't mention my reads without a graphic novel. So Let me log in here real quick. So in 2021, I read the entirety of a graphic novel series called East of West. So I'll just pop this up here real quick. This is the final cover of East of West, Volume 10. So there are 10 volumes of it. It was just fantastic. Couldn't recommend it more. Definitely an adult graphic novel, so don't get this for your kids and tell them to read it because you think graphic novels and comics are for kids. It follows the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Not necessarily follows them, but they are definitely some very key players. But in particular, it follows Death, one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. He has had a child with a woman, and that child is said to bring about the end of the world, as if the four horsemen of the apocalypse are not enough to do that. So it's very much a story of family and trying to reunite with your family. And I think it's just an absolutely amazing story.
Yeah.
It takes place in a very futuristic America where like the Confederacy still exists, but in a really strange futuristic way. There is a thing called the oh gosh, I want to say it's called the Future Nations, but I know that's not it. But basically, it's an entire nation of Native American people, and they're kind of all cyborgy, which is really neat. So it's all just so well thought out and amazing. And Jonathan Hickman, who is the writer, has won so many awards for the series. So just so glad I read that last year. It was well worth it.
That's great. Awesome. Now, was there anything that you wanted to read last year, but you didn't get a chance to?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Probably at the beginning of last year, I added this to my to be read list, but have never got around to it. And now that I've got it in my hands, I'll probably read it. The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. This came out in 2020, so this is a fairly new one. This is about a teenage girl in a puritanical society who was already outcast because she was biracial, and that's a no-no in that society. But then she's also finding out that she might be a witch, and that's an even bigger no-no. So this is like being hailed as a amazing feminist novel. So definitely want to read this and see what all the hype is about.
Awesome. Great. I look forward to hearing all about it.
Yeah. What did you want to read?
Well, I did kind of a little bit cheating on our stipulations we put on today, but I did start this like the last week of December. So I didn't quite get to finishing it, but it is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. It came out in May of summer or spring 2021 it came out, and it's getting a lot of press. Andy Weir, obviously he wrote The Martian, which was a big movie and a blockbuster and big things, really popular, and he's got other books that are becoming TV movies and things, so he's kind of all over the place. But this book, I'm about 7 chapters in. I'm listening to it, and I really like it. And I'm not really, I like science fiction to a point. But his books, if you've ever read him before, you know that they can be very sciencey. Lots of scientific terms, lots of things that kind of make your brain work a lot, which doesn't always happen when you're reading science fiction sometimes. But I really enjoyed it. The 7 chapters I've read. And I know that lots of people have enjoyed it as well from last year. So I think that I'm really looking forward to finishing it. It's great so far. So I look forward to it. And I don't want to say too much about it, but it's about space and going to space and someone in space and basically space survival-ish type things. So
yeah, my fiance really loved The Martian. So I when I heard that was coming out, I recommended it to him in an instant.
Yeah, it's really good. I also enjoy some of his other stuff. I've read Artemis, which he wrote as well. And so, I've read most science fiction I've read recently has been Andy Weir. But yeah, so it's a good one. It's an interesting concept. I like it a lot. Yeah.
Amazing. That was a lot of good reads for 2021.
With a lot of review for 2021, and we've got lots and lots to look forward to in 2022.
For sure.
So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you again, Cannon Coffee, for our brews. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yes.
Anything else, Sammy? No? Okay. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.